There's a line in that song I really love. Something about if it came so easily or if it didn't come so easily, how would I know the strength in me? Is that what it says? That line truly, I think, summarizes not just our life experience, but truly the mission behind this book, the endless practice that we're jumping into. If it all came just so easily, first we think we like it that way. But if it did, we really wouldn't know the depths of strength within us. We wouldn't know the expansive capacity to love that is within us. This week we are really jumping into the first section of this book, entitled To Glow in All Directions. And last week I invited you to know that we have to let the light spill out of us. This is how we illuminate the world. This is how we bring the presence of God into the world, by letting the light spill out of us. And the quote he begins the section is this: to learn how to ask for what we need, only to practice accepting what we're given, this is our journey on earth. To learn how to ask for what we need, only to practice accepting what we're given, this is our journey on earth. Implicit in this statement is the idea that when we ask for what we need, that's not what we always get. We think we know what we need, we ask for it, but that's not what we always get. But the true transformation comes in the ability to practice what we're given. How many of you participated in the fall book study last year when we studied, thank you, The Untethered Soul? How many of you either did a book study or at least read the book on your own or something, The Untethered Soul? You know, last year when we did that book study, people were just raving about how wonderful that book was. They were like, thank you for introducing this book. This book is amazing. This book has transformed me. Oh, I understand it. I get it now. The praise was just overflowing. So far, the feedback about this book has been a little less than enthusiastic. It has been. I've gotten comments ranging from, I'm taking my time to get into it. It's taking some getting into. One person just came outright and said to me, I don't like this book. And I'm okay with that. As I have said before, I believe the job of minister is twofold. One, to bring comfort to the afflicted, and two, to afflict the comfortable. Jennifer tends to lead towards the former part of it. I a little bit towards the latter. This is how we balance things out. Because I believe, and he talks about this a little bit, I'm going to talk about it too. I believe that we have to get out of our comfort zone sometimes. Why? Because when we're in our comfort zone, no growth really takes place there. Because it's comfortable. We relax, we put our feet up, we sit back. Nothing comfortable, no growth happens, no real transformation happens until we step out of our comfort zone. When I think of this idea of getting out of the comfort zone into a place of feeling that may be scary, that may be uncomfortable, but still is a catalyst for our growth, I think of one of my favorite characters in the Bible, a man named Job. Guys, remember Job, heard about Job? Just in case you haven't, let me give you the down and dirty cliff notes. I don't have time to read the whole passage because it's a pretty lengthy book, lots of like early second, third century poetry. It goes on and on and on. No one says anything concisely at all. So I'm going to give you the cliff notes. There was this man named Job, and he was a pretty rich man for his time. Lots of cattle, lots of land, had a wonderful family, beautiful children, and he was a man who, as the Bible says, did what was right in the sight of God. He was a God-fearing man. So one day God says to Satan, "Hey, check out my man Job. What do you think? He's got the stuff, right?" And Satan says, "Well, of course he does. Look what you have given him. You've given him the life of luxury. Take all that good stuff away. He may not be so happy with you." To which God says, I think Job and I are tight. Go ahead. Do what you want to do with him. All of a sudden in Job's life, things start going downhill. Rival groups and tribes come in and steal his cattle and take over his land. His entire family, with the exception of his wife, his kids are killed. I mean, it's a mess. It's devastating. It's like tragedy after tragedy after tragedy. In the midst of all of it, Job does not say anything bad against God. God says to Satan, "See what I told you, Job's my man." And Satan says, "Well, that's all well and good, but he still has his health. If we still have our health, we're doing okay. Take that away from him. Let's see what happens." God said, I got confidence in Job. Go ahead. So in the story, we read that suddenly Job is inflicted from head to foot with these terrible sores and boils, and it's just miserable. And I was introduced to this story when I was a little boy growing up in church, and I really didn't get an understanding of how miserable Job might have been until one year in college, I contracted chicken pox. Yeah. Now, I got it from my 5-year-old niece. I was living with an uncle and his family at the time. I got it with my 5-year-old niece. She was over it in about 3 days. I had it for a week. And these little chicken pox, boils, sores, whatever, literally from the crown of my head, even under the soles of my feet, it was the most miserable experience I had ever had up to that point. And I was like, I get Job now. I get what he went through. I got it, last week I shared about some other stuff that happened in college. I'm realizing college may not have been such a great experience I thought it was. But here we go. So this has happened. So this happens to Job. And even Job's wife is like, "Dude, it's not getting much worse than this. Why don't you just curse God and die?" That's what it says. And Job still isn't doing it. Then some well-meaning friends. In life we have the well-meaning friends who come to give us advice and try to comfort us. Notice I'm using the air quotes. So these friends come to comfort Job, and their comfort is, we know what's happening. You're in a mess like this, so obviously you did something wrong. So I'll just fess up, ask for forgiveness, and just get out of this. So basically they showed up to help Job think it was his fault. And at first Job was like, "No, I didn't do anything." But then after a while, it started to get to him, and he was like, "But wait a minute, if I haven't done anything, why is this happening? What's going on?" And he starts to demand an answer from God. Let me pause on the story right here and clear up a few things. So in unity, when we talk about the Bible and we look at stories in the Bible, how we look at them is, of course, that every character, story, place in the Bible is representative of our own spiritual internal journey. Okay, so in unity, we don't believe that there is a being, an entity called Satan or the devil. What we interpret that is to mean that when we start having the thoughts in our heads that try to make us forget the deep truth that we know, that's what we interpret as the devil. Those are the thoughts. For example, We teach that there is no lack in God, that the universe is a thoroughly abundant place, and that as expressions of the divine, at our core, at our soul, who we are abundant. Not just abundant, but we are the very abundance of the universe. Yet sometimes things happen in our life that may make us forget that, and we start to doubt that we are abundant. And we have the thoughts in our head. Sometimes we have what I like to call the committee, those voices in the back of the head that try to tell you that you're less than the greatness that you are. That's what that is. Our well-meaning friends are also the thoughts in our head that try to say, this is our fault. We did something wrong to make this happen in our lives. That's what the friends in that story represent. So we are all the characters. We are even Job. We're even Job in the midst of this going, what is going on? Because Job is going through a transformation. And this is what the endless practice is about. Going through transformation. Going through transformation not separate from life itself, but that life itself is our transformation. Life itself is our transformation. Life itself is the thing that is our spiritual journey. I've had to really work with the word practice and redefine what practice means. As a musician, practice meant I sat at the piano for an hour and did scales and worked through difficult sections of a piece, sometimes 2 hours. I never made the 3 hours in college that my teacher said I should sit and practice for. She's like, yeah, 3 hours, about 3 times a day. And I did the math, and I was like, there's no way that's going to happen. But the piano majors who were going to make a career out of playing piano, they would practice for sometimes 9, 10 hours a day. I thought that was insanity. But you know what it was? They were making playing the instrument the life practice of them. Same thing with spiritual practices like meditation. When we think meditation, we think we just go sit in the silence for a prescribed period of time. 5 minutes, 15, 20, 40, whatever it is. So we do that, we get grounded, we connect with Spirit, and then we re-engage life. What if the life itself that we engaged, again, is the practice? And in every moment that we are in life, we are practicing who we are. We are practicing being the divine. We are making God a verb. We're not just being God. We're doing God. We are making God a verb. In the first section of this book, To Go in All Directions, he shares these 6 practices. And these 6 practices are, again, not a thing we do or don't do, not necessarily a thing we set aside time for, but as life shows up for us, we jump into these. We do these. He talks about the practice of uncertainty. When we get into doubtful places, when things happen and we're like Job, like, what's going on here? How do we work with this? The practice of uncertainty is patience. Patience. Because everything that happens in life, there is something for us. There is a seed of growth, a seed of transformation. We may not see it right away. We may not see it months later. We may not see it years later. But we get to be patient. And part of being patient is to notice the part of us that wants to slow down. Sometimes our mind is racing. You ever have those moments when your mind is just racing, but you are so tired? Your physical body's tired, but your mind is racing. Guess what? Follow the body. If the body says rest, do what it needs to rest. Sometimes our heart is racing. We're anxious, we're excited, the heart's racing, but the mind is calm. So follow the calm mind. The practice of uncertainty is patience. The practice of opportunity is trust. Here's my favorite quote from this section so far. Opportunity always presents itself as an opening that seems smaller than we think we can fit through. Yeah, nice. Opportunity always presents itself as an opening that seems smaller than we think we can fit through. And to follow our heart means trusting that we will fit. So when opportunities present themselves and we may seem like, we trust. We trust we're going to fit. Otherwise, the opportunity would not have presented itself. The practice of courage is doing small things with love. He writes that this is the way of Mother Teresa. Doing small things with love. She did small things with such an open heart and with such compassion that it became one of the largest ministries of love that we know of. Small things with love. When we do small things with love, we are practicing how to love. And when the moments of maybe fear and distraction come up, we've so practiced how to love before that happens that love is available to us. What we practice gets better. Practice small things with love. And then the next one, the practice of connection is holding and listening. Practice of connection. So, how many of you are right-handed? How many of you are left-handed? Okay, we have right-handed folks, we have left-handed folks. How many of you consider yourselves introverts? How many consider yourselves extroverts? How many really don't know? That's an option too. We see these as either-ors. They're not either-ors. One of them is a strength, and one of them is just an unused capacity and potential. And the practice of connection is combining the two. When we are introverts, it means that we listen almost with the heart first. We turn within. When we are extroverts, we're always looking outwards. We want to be whole, we got to be able to do both. Look within and look without. When we are listening fully to another, we listen to what they're saying, but we listen with our heart as well. That's the practice of connection. Holding and listening. And these four previous practices lead us to the fifth, the practice of exploration, mastery, and abandonment. Exploration, mastery, and abandonment. Now, those three things sound strange together. But we are spiritual. We're on a spiritual journey. We're exploring. We are practicing our spiritual skills. And there may come a point where we achieve mastery, where we can be in the midst of the turmoil and be that calm center of the storm. And we get there and we realize, it's been paying off. I'm not being rocked from my center. And then we start to feel a little too good about ourselves. And we start going, I got this down. Come on, world, bring it to me. I got this down. But then what happens is then that maybe the pride sits in, the ego starts to have a field day. We may get complacent. We're like, I don't need to meditate 20 minutes anymore. I got this down. I'll just do a little 1 minute thing and I'm good. I don't even meditate today. I got this down. And we step away from the very thing that got us to that place. And that's where the abandonment comes in. The abandonment is the letting go of this idea that we ever think we've mastered anything. We go back to the beginner's mind. We go back to the place of knowing that the more we think we know, the more there is to know. And finally, the practice of staying devoted to a life of expression. This is the letting the light spill out of you. This is how we find our way to truly what is sacred. It's good enough to know all these things, our fifth unity principle tells us, but now we need to express it. We are the light of the world. And to live the life of expression is to let it shine. He writes this: the aim and the purpose of practice is not to be done with it, but to immerse ourselves so completely in life that we, for the moment, are life itself living. For the moment, we are life itself living. Life doesn't happen to us. We are life happening. And what kind of life are we going to be? Let's go back to Job, who after he demanded an answer from God, God showed up. And God was not helpful. Because God never said to Job why this is happening. God never says to Job, I'm sorry this is happening. In the story, you know what God says? Where were you when the universe came into being? Where were you when I laid the foundations of earth? I am God. And you're thinking, whoa, that's kind of a little bit arrogant there, God. What's going on? But Job comes to realization. There needs not be an explanation. What there needs to be is reliance on the divine. What there needs to be is a turning to spirit. There needs to be an expression of spirit. In the story, after God makes this huge soliloquy, Job agrees, repents, and his fortunes are returned to him twofold. Twice as much property, cattle, another beautiful family. What does it mean to repent? Repent means simply to change our thinking. This is our mission, to change our thinking about how we are in life and how we engage life. Change our thinking to realize we are the practice of life. We are the source of the light. And that light is the divine of who we are. And when we change our thinking to this assurance, that's when the beauty shows up. The aim and purpose of practice is not to be done with it, but to immerse ourselves so completely in life that for the moment we are life itself living. Go be the life. Go be the light. Namaste.